My name's Robin Mather, and I make bike frames which are generally steel, lugged or fillet brazed, and they are made to order and they're bespoke. And I make forks and stems and various bits and pieces to go with them and build them up. I got into it because I was interested in, enjoyed making things, and I was always encouraged to make things. And bicycles they're very open. You can look at it and kind of figure out kind of how it works just by looking at it. It's not kind of a black box with mysterious things going on inside. It was an obvious thing to try and make, in a way. So I did, and it kind of went quite well, and then I got an opportunity to learn more about how to do it from people who'd been doing it for a long time. And then I practiced a lot for quite a few years, really. And looking back now on some of the earlier frames, it's quite nice to see progression. So a lot of the learning is just by doing and trying things and getting a feel for materials, and it's not kind of book learning, it's not theoretical in any way, it's just trial and error and practice. That on its own doesn't really work unless you just want to repeat yourself over and over and over again. I think you need, as well as that, a little bit of an understanding of what's going on underneath and the kind of engineering fundamentals, and a bit about materials and a bit about sort of fabrication technology, and kind of put it all into the mix. So I do make an effort to learn more theoretical stuff when I get an opportunity. I mean, that's a large part of why I find it kind of fascinating, because it includes all those quite disparate elements, and you've got to keep them all in the air at the same time, and consider them all if it's really going to work. Yeah, so I think that's craft, is the overlap between art and engineering. I think you need a bit of both, definitely. I think if you only, if you abandon one and you just have the engineering, then you end up with something maybe a bit industrial and lifeless, and if you only have the art, then you end up with something that's going to fall apart. So you need both, and I think maybe that's what craft is. It's something that has elements of both. And obviously it has to be a functioning structure and a functioning mechanism. I certainly have to acknowledge that there is, or at least I think there is, some beauty in them. That's why I spend time filing the silly little points on the lugs, because I think they look nice. It's not because they add anything really to the structure of it. So yeah, there's definitely some art in it. But it's just because the pointy bit looks nice. It's not deep or meaningful. So this kind of idea that someone's buying something that doesn't yet exist, it's quite unusual, really. Normally you go into a shop, you see it, and you have a chance to assess the kind of physical article before you commit to buying it. I guess the challenge is to try and understand how they imagine the end product, because you can't show it to them until it's done, and when it's done it's kind of too late, in a sense, if it's wrong. So I do try and understand how they imagine it, and whether they imagine it in terms of a fairly kind of conventional pigeonhole, like an Audax bike or a mountain bike or a road bike, or whether they imagine it in kind of slightly different terms, and maybe it is a feature of some other bike that they used to have, or someone else had that they particularly liked, or some ride they went on that was kind of special to them, or some other they've got a favourite old saddle that they want to put on it, and that might kind of direct the discussion a little bit. So it's not just about getting them to say what head angle and what tube diameters and what the kind of nuts and bolts of it. Sometimes it's much more abstract than that, but it's quite interesting just to ask a very open question and see what comes back. But often it's quite you get quite interesting stuff back if you do that, I think. I mean, this project's been really interesting because it's not the normal kind of relationship between me and the customer, because Rapha's been involved as well. There's like a third party. They have expectations, and they've placed certain kind of criteria on it, in terms of the componentry that it's going to be built up with and the places where it's going to be ridden. So it's so it's a kind of a three-way thing, and also it's slightly different for me in that it's not just about building something that the customer is happy with. It's also about building something that I feel kind of showcases what I do, as well as it can. It's quite a traditional looking frame with a steel fork and a steel handlebar stem. There is sometimes a danger that if you build up a bike like that with very modern componentry, it can look slightly out of place. But I think this one's going to work out. I think it'll be okay. Yeah, I do feel very positive about the build, and I'm glad it's nearly finished and it's going to get to the painters in time. So that in itself is, feels good, and I think it looks nice. I think it will look nice. So yeah, it feels pretty good. Right.